All right, good afternoon, Trade Pros. Welcome back to another edition of our Future Midday Update. This is Mark checking in here from Trade Pro Academy, headquarters here in Toronto, Ontario. Welcome you guys back. For anybody that is new and watching, welcome. Make sure to drop a chat in the interactive chat, say hello. And if you are a returning viewer, welcome back, and thanks for showing up. And thanks for making this worthwhile. So first things first, what we're going to cover is some of the news that came in through the U.S. Cash Open. Georgie covered what we had coming out overnight, some of the overnight drivers, and some of the economic data that came out really through the before the open, which there wasn't too much of on front for the U.S. Really, the only number we had coming out of the States was the Richmond Manufacturing Index that came out at 10 a.m. Not a very high impact event. That was your May Richmond Fed Manufacturing Index that came in at 5 versus 7 expected, while new orders came in at 0 versus -2 prior. Other drivers here, we had Bank of Canada with the interest rate. They left those interest rates unchanged at 1.75% as expected, with no mention of returning to a normal or to a neutral range. So that's what we had as far as economic news. The real driver here for this session was Special Counsel Mueller resigning from the Department of Justice. We saw a bit of a bid on the back of him speaking at 11, and the market proceeded to roll over and sell off shortly thereafter, coming back into its opening range highs and pressing to new lows, which I can see we are currently rebounding off of around those 2766s. So that is what we have as far as news. Nothing else planned for the remainder of the session, but it's always good to keep a squawk handy. If you can hear it in the background, that is the squawk, and that updates us with regards to any breaking headlines, anything that might affect these markets that we do trade, especially as day traders, very important to have. And we highly recommend you guys also have a squawk available to you with real-time news if you guys are going to be day trading seriously. Taking it as a business, you got to invest in the right tools, and that is one of the tools that is good to have if you'll be day trading. So with that being said, let's jump over to our charts now, take a look at the quote board, and then we will take a look at some of the key levels on oil and on S&P 500 coming into the latter half of today's session. Only real thing that I see on the forecast going into the remainder of the week is basically your GDP figures coming out tomorrow morning. Outside of that, looks to be relatively muted as far as scheduled economic releases. So that's all we got for there. Let me jump on over on the Hangouts and switch my screen to the screen share here. So let's get that sharing. All right, there we go. So, and let's get the pen out, make it a little bit bigger. So first things first, crude oil. We've seen it trade around 690,000 contracts on the session. We are down to almost 3% on the current session here from the previous day close. If I scroll up here, our previous day close came in at stuck under the overnight high, which is 59.10. So previous day close was 59.10. We are currently at 57.37. So down almost 3% on that front on today's session overnight and into today's session here. We are currently above the open on today's session, but below the previous day's close. So technicals at the moment looking a little bit mixed on crude oil. On S&P 500, however, we are well below the previous day close and the open, so bearish is the right way to go. And your volume's looking pretty good here as well. We're back within that average that we've been seeing, around 1 to 1.5 million contracts at this part of the day. Also down 1.15% from that previous day close. So SPU's very bearish. Crude oil is also bearish, but it is back above its open at the moment. So kind of neutral to bearish on crude and bearish on the SPUs. So that's what we got on the quote board. Let's take a look at the pivot charts. Pivot charts as well story is showing that we are a little bit oversold on this market here. We generally consider anything around the S3 to the S4 during a session to be considered oversold on that session. And we've seen a couple of attempts to break below those lows at the 57.20s. We've had 1, 2, 3, 4 attempts to break below those 57.20s. And you're seeing right now we're getting a rotation back up into that S3. So S3 will be a first potential level of resistance. That lines up really nice with a level that we've got going on in the markets at the moment. We'll take a look at that shortly. But first things first, S3, if the sellers are going to press this thing lower today, trying to get back into that S4, we'll likely have to see S3 hold as a resistance in order for sellers to rotate it back lower. Alternatively, what is possible, breakout above S3. Remember, it's an hourly bar here, guys, and this hour just started. We're 10 minutes into the hour. So if we get a breakout of that S3 and we close above it here, and we can look for a press back up into that S2, right around that 58 level. That could be another potential target to the upside if we can get back up above that S3. So that's kind of what we'll be watching for. Don't really think there's going to be too much downside left on the session today. If anything, another rotation back to the S4, but we've already seen 1, 2 around that level. I think we might need to release some buy stops before we can get back to the downside. So first target here, S3 should hold as resistance. If that doesn't, then we can look for press back up into your R2. S&P 500 on your left-hand side here. You can see we are pressing back below S2. This one is a little bit trendier than crude oil today. And what you're seeing is breakouts, rotations, breakout, rotations. Now we're just coming off the back of a breakdown from that from that S1. You see we're holding it here as resistance into the London session, popped our heads above it during the cash open, and now we are back below it, firmly below it. Looking to rotate back up into that S2. Your S2 comes in at the 20 or 74.75. So just about where we're at the moment. Look for this level to hold as resistance here for the sellers to make an attempt back into that S3 right around that 27.50 level. So that's what we've got on the swoosh. Now let's take a look at the range bar charts here. And if I drag this thing up, this is what we're seeing. We're seeing crude obviously in a bearish trend rather. Right off the open, there is our pit open. And you can see during this pit session so far, we caught a bit of a bid up into that VWAP, rotated back into those 57.50s, pressed back up above that VWAP. And on this rotation back, the buyers were really unable to hold this as support. We broke back below it, and we've been kind of making lower lows and lower highs since then. Came into that overnight low up into those 57.50s. We've pressed these lows at the 56.90s twice, and now we're seeing a press up higher. So like I said, this is a first potential level of resistance. You are seeing selling starting to come in, and you are seeing volume starting to pick up on that down rotation. So that's kind of what we're seeing here at the moment. If we see another rotation up and that fails to break out any higher, then we can look to press this thing back down to those overnight lows, into those 57s. If, however, we do get back up above this zone, our next level will be those 57.80s, right around that VWAP and right around this zone here at the 57.90s. That will be the line in the sand for the shorts. If we do get back up above this level, I can see the bulls pressing this thing up higher, potentially back to that previous day low, right around those 58.60s. So that's kind of what we got on crude for the session. S&P 500. We are seeing lower lows, lower highs, and this thing's looking pretty nice here as well on the beginning of the session. A little bit of chop, to be quite honest, between that opening range. You see it traded the downside of it, traded back to the upside, downside, upside. Mueller report started right around this time, around 11 a.m. And as I mentioned, we had a little bit of a bid on the back of that Mueller report until we came up into that opening range, failed to break out, and we had a nice slide lower. So now we've pressed down into these 27.66s. We're back at our first key level of resistance here in those 74s. This is also your S3. So watching to see if the sellers can hold this rotation here, maybe 1 or 2 rotations that fail, we can look to press this thing back towards that current session low in the 2766s. Alternatively, if we come back into this level and we kind of form a double bottom and sellers are unable to press this thing any lower, we could see another rotation into these 74s and potentially back up into that opening range low, your overnight low, your Globex VWAP, and your pit session VWAP. So that's also a target for the buyers if we can get above this zone here in the 74s. That's kind of what we'll be watching for here. And that's going to wrap up the analysis portion of this update. What I'm going to show you guys now is a TRADEPRO performance index, and our results for today: 64.58% positive, just under 50% were up on the session, 20% were flat, and 35% were down, giving us that 64.58% green. As we approach the end of May, 2 more sessions left. Our average remains at 67.42% positive in the room. So these are live traders that have come through our program, have put in the work, and are showing results here. Progress is starting to be made. You're seeing, good numbers. Today was a little bit tougher during the morning part of the session, really up until the European cash close. We normally take our poll around that time, so that's what the figures looked like at that time. We have seen a pretty directional move to the downside in the SPOs, so I would imagine these numbers are probably looking a bit better coming into this time of day. However, as it stands, great results so far for May. 2 more days, looking for us to close out really strong on that front. And we are going to wrap up this update with a quick announcement. So I'll just flip this back to myself here. There we go. So a quick announcement for you guys that are watching is basically, if you missed it in the morning update today, we are going to be increasing our prices for the subscriptions effective Monday at midnight. That is Monday, June the 3rd at midnight. Prices will be going up. So if you guys have been on the sidelines, kind of looking for a reason to get in, this is a good reason to get in. As we continue to add value to the memberships since our last increase. Georgie mentioned it, but I'll kind of summarize. We've added extended hours coverage. We've offered a lot more support. We've retaped our futures course, so that's updated as of 2019 February. We've updated our foundations course as well, which is effective, I believe that was as of April 2019. We've added Forex reports, options reports. We've got extended coverage as far as a day trading room. So we originally did 9 a.m. till 11. Now we've got it going from 9 a.m. till around 12:30 p.m. Eastern. And we also have London coverage now from 3 a.m. to 5 a.m. Eastern time as well. So a lot of value added overall since our last increase. And this is your opportunity here, if you've kind of been waiting on the sidelines, to jump in and see what we are all about. Like I said, the price increase happens on Monday at 12 p.m. midnight. So on that point, what we're going to do for you guys, if you have been on the sidelines, we're going to open up a Q&A for Friday, this Friday, which is going to be the 31st. Yep, Friday, May 31st at 12 p.m. Eastern. Instead of doing the futures update, we are going to be doing a Q&A for you guys at that time. So if you have any questions about us, about our packages, anything that you'd want kind of to know about us before signing in to the program, that's the place to have your questions handy and have those questions ready to be answered. So again, we will be doing a Q&A on Friday, May the 31st at 12 p.m. for the futures update. And make sure to come in with your questions, anything about us. We'll be happy to answer that and support you guys as you look to join the membership and the community. So with that said, I'm going to sign off for now. We will continue to let you guys know about this update until it happens, and make sure to have those questions ready for Friday. I'll drop the link in the description below once I create that event on YouTube. So until then, good luck and good trading. If you will be trading into the latter end of the session, remember those 3 important rules: stay patient, stay diligent, and stay disciplined. Till then, take care, guys. I'm heading out here off to do some work. Hope you guys enjoy the rest of your days. Ciao.